So Cloud9, and more specifically Shroud, has been a big topic of discussion lately in the CSGO community, whether it be because of his talk about retirement and all the controversy that surrounded that as people began to call into question his dedication to the game and the amount of time he was putting in, or whether it be the stats he's been putting up, or whether it be his performance overall, even from an eye test perspective. Whatever the case may be, Shroud's name has certainly been at the forefront of discussion in the community, and so I thought I would take a bit of a different approach to the topic and ask the question, should Shroud entry frag? Could this be the key to maybe getting him back into top-notch form? Could this be something that helps out Cloud9? I just wanted to put that topic out there for discussion. It's something that I've brought up many times before, but it's never been the main topic. When I've done videos on Cloud9 in the past, it's always been something that I've hinted at. You know, you can go back and look at a video I did about 10 months ago on this channel when Automatic first joined Cloud9, and I was kind of talking about Automatic in his past and what I thought he might be able to bring to the team and all that good stuff. And in that video, I made mention of the fact that maybe Shroud could go back to an entry fragger role or a second entry role with Automatic coming on the team, since he had played Peripherals on TSM prior to joining Cloud9. Even going back when Freakazoid vs. departed Cloud9 and Slimmy came on board, and I was talking about that in some videos like a little over a year ago, or what have you. Again, I did hint at this topic. I'm also not the only one who's touched this topic. I know Sean Garris has brought it up, you know, in the aftermath of him departing Cloud9 as an in-game leader and in-game leading for Echo Fox and now Misfits. When people have asked him about Shroud, he has brought this up. Dazed recently has brought this up, as well as an analyst when I was listening to him on an episode of Put Up or Shut Up that he was featured on. I'm pretty sure this is one of the things that he was arguing for in one of his points on one of the different rounds they were playing in that talk show, game show type thing that they do over there. And I'm pretty sure I've heard him say it maybe on the desk as well on like an EPL stream or something like that, or ECS. I'm not really sure, but certainly I have heard other analysts voice this opinion as well. I'm not trying to say that, you know, they've heard my content and that's why they've said that. Of course not. But I'm just saying that it's a thought that I have had for a very long time, and it's a thought that is shared by some other analysts out there in the community as maybe this is something that should be looked at. And I want to give a bit of context as to why I am posing this potential option. So first off, when it comes to context, I want to point out the fact that Shroud had a lot of success in the role of being a second entry type player in that famous summer 2015 run that Cloud9 had, where they had the 3 tournaments where they placed second. And of course, I'm talking about ESL Pro League Season 1 Finals, ESWC 2015, as well as Face It Stage 2 Finals in 2015 as well. But even going back before that into some of the Gfinity Summer Masters 1, for example, he was already plugged into this role. He was already individually producing, even though his team wasn't getting those placements yet. But obviously those 3 second place finishes were pretty big stuff, and he still did even keep pretty good individual form after that, even if the team results weren't necessarily there for Cloud9. So that's certainly something that you bring into it whenever you're thinking about context, is the fact that we've already seen him be able to perform in this capacity. In fact, that's probably some of the best CS he's ever played in his entire career when it comes to big LAN tournaments, is when he was the second entry fragger. He was a big part of the system that Cloud9 had that propelled them to being able to be one of the top teams during that time period. It was that system of Freakazoid being the fearless entry fragger going in first, and Shroud being right there to follow him up, while you had guys like Sean Garris and Nothing playing more peripheral roles. Then of course you've had Skadoodle, who was really on point with the AWP. Don't get me wrong, it's not as if Shroud was like the hard carry of Cloud9, but it was really that fragging trio of particularly Skadoodle, Shroud, and Nothing at that time. That was pretty big, so he was a big element in that, and it was from a secondary entry fragger role position. Also, when you think about Shroud's mechanics and just the rhythm that he brings to the game, when you watch him play and you just see like what his high points are, you know, what his strengths are, that aim that he has, the ability to flick around, the ability to be so precise, just the way you watch him when he death matches or when he's just messing around in a pug or something like that, and he's just running around like a loose cannon, he's swinging his crosshair all over the place. Those mechanics just really feel suited to someone who should be this aim star type player, who should be an entry or second entry type player who can really get in there and open up bomb sites and really put it to it. Now, certainly you could argue whether or not his current form really matches up to what I'm describing about the strengths aspects of his mechanics. Yes, sure. But I'm just saying that when you look at his roots and when you look at what he's most known for, these mechanics that really lend itself to some type of entry or second entry type role really is there for Shroud. And even if it's not there in his current form, maybe if he was put into that role and he really grinded it and he really did get back into tip-top shape in that role, then maybe this is something to really think about here. We've even seen at certain times that Shroud has done this in particular tactics, even though he's more of a peripheral player and you know, Stewie2k Automatic are more of the 1-2 punch right now. There are still certain tactics or certain times where you do still see him kind of opening things up, whether it just be a particular execute where like it's like basically a 4 or 5 man rush and everyone's really getting out there, then he is in situations where he's going to be a bit more of a loose cannon. He's going to be looking for entries. Or maybe someone like Stewie or Automatic goes down, and so he has to be called upon in a 4-on-4 type situation or something like that to be a guy who's really taking more initiative and trying to open things up. Then you may still see him float into that capacity. And there's times from an eye test when I see him get forced into that role, whether that be because of the tactic or because of how the round's broken down, that he can still excel doing that at times. You still see those little flashes of brilliance when he's called upon to be the one to really take the forefront of an opening or something like that. And really all of the reason why I'm even bringing any of this up anyway is there seems to be this commitment to keep this 5 together, right? Like that has been the message that has been consistently shown throughout interviews or throughout people's personal streams or any time that anyone has really talked about this team from the Cloud9 side of things. It really has been this commitment that they want to keep this 5 together, that they want to make it work, that they feel confident in it, that they feel the roles work, that they feel that even though some of these players don't shine, that they still contribute a lot, like as supportive type players or what have you. And so my point is if you are really truly committed to this 5, then I feel like if you're having struggles, you have to kind of exhaust all of your resources. You have to kind of make drastic changes if things are not working out, if you're not getting the results that you want to get. And they've already tried shifting the in-game leader role between, you know, Nothing and Stewie and Automatic. So they've already tried shifting leadership around on the team. It's come back to Stewie2k, who they feel is the most capable to do that. You've seen, you know, them try to get Skadoodle more involved at certain times. I think Skadoodle certainly isn't nearly as passive as he used to be. I know people still cite that over and over again as critique of Skadoodle's play, but I really feel like he's had times where he really has become more dynamic as an AWP on the CT side. I don't know if he's kind of gone back to being a bit more reserved, but I certainly have seen this pretty good stretch of time where he was being moved around the map quite a lot on the CT side with the AWP, and he was taking a more initiative on T sides depending on the map. Obviously, it's still really about making room for Stewie and Automatic to do those types of things, but there were certain matches they really were setting him up to take opening duels and things like that. So I feel like they have also experimented to a degree with how Skadoodle's AWP is utilized, and maybe people would still argue that he hasn't gone dynamic enough or he hasn't been selfish enough as an opper to go even harder. But I do think that there has been some shift there in his play as well. So I feel like other things have been attempted, other things have been shifted around, other roles have been tweaked, other responsibilities have been, you know, kind of addressed. But this concept of perhaps putting Shroud back into a role he was successful in the past, that he has the mechanics for, is something that we haven't really quite seen yet. And another point to add to this context is that Automatic has in the past shown the ability to play a peripheral role. If in fact you wanted to keep Stewie2k as a, you know, entry fragger type player, because that's what he's really good at. He's obviously very aggressive. He likes to take a lot of initiative. He obviously has big playmaking ability to open up bomb sites or open up areas of the map. So if you wanted to do with Stewie2k Shroud 1-2 punch, for example, just to try to give that a shot and see if it works, Automatic has proven that he can be, you know, peripheral player. I mean, on TSM, for example, he was putting up really good numbers in E-League Season 1 and at that ECS Season 1 finals at TSM kind of shocked everyone. And he was playing more of a peripheral role on that team. He was doing a lot of lurking, and he was still putting up really good numbers. Yeah, sure, he wasn't putting up the same numbers he did for Cloud9 at that EPL Season 4 finals where he was absolutely nuts and he was like the MVP of the tournament and he had just these monster numbers. But to be fair, he hasn't really put up those monster numbers that often in general across LAN play in his current role. So I mean, yeah, he's played really, really well in his current role. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but I'm just saying he has had proven track record of being able to be a successful player in a peripheral slot if you wanted, you know, Shroud and Stewie2k to perhaps be your 1-2 punch. You could also say that maybe Stewie could play that peripheral if he wanted to. I mean, there's certainly a lot of playmakers in CSGO who have some of the same versatility and mechanics as Stewie2k who have thrived playing a peripheral role. These players include guys like Nico, you know, on Esports. This guy was playing a lot of peripheral roles at times, like outside AL Mirage or in Squeaky Door on Cash or what have you, and was able to have a huge impact from a peripheral role. And you do see Stewie2k doing some of that. Like, he used to play outside of AR Mirage, for example, and things like that. So certainly, you know, that's something to think about. Look at Shocks. This is a guy who has a huge impact, a huge playmaker from peripheral roles throughout a lot of his career, particularly like on G2, the iteration before the one we see today, and even the one we see today where you see him playing roles like Squeaky at times, or, you know, just playing outside roles. I think it's changed a lot now because this G2 team uses a lot of double op on T side, and he's the second op in those situations. So it kind of tweaks things a little bit, but you get my point. Like, Shox has had that history of being a big playmaker from peripherals, just like Nico has. Simple even was capable of doing this. Like, when he was on Liquid, for example, he got used a lot in that capacity to kind of do his own thing while the team worked out other issues. There was certainly a lot of circumstances that happened because of the whole Opper debate and everything on that team, but even on Navi, there were certain times where once, like, he kind of got away from opping and they really tried to make him a full-fledged rifler, like, especially with the new coach and everything, Andy, you would see him, like, playing apartments on Inferno or something and trying to be a big playmaker there on the peripheral roles. So I'm saying that when you think about the type of mechanics of versatility that Stewie2k has, perhaps he could even just be a big playmaker in peripheral roles. Again, you've already seen it on A-Side Mirage at times. He'd also do, like, this crazy, like, uncanny ability of lurking A solo on overpass and making these really crazy plays as an individual. So maybe there is something there as well. But I'm just saying that there are some other players in this team who could take up Shroud's role as a peripheral player, and Shroud could be more of an entry, and it's possible that it would work because they have proven that they can play those roles as well, is what I'm getting at. This is all context. So these are all reasons that really lend itself to the fact that it could work, that it might be worth trying, that if you're going to keep this 5 and you really want to exhaust all your resources and you really want to throw all your options out there, these are the different things I feel like that point to the fact that it might be worth trying, that it could certainly work. Now, there could be some issues, certainly. There's definitely some big things that you have to think about. For one, are you going to shake up the Unimatic Stewie2k combo? Is that really something that you want to do? Because why would you want to fix something that isn't broken? Why would you want to shake up one of the big working parts that the team still has? Like, that's one of the highlights of the team. That's one of the biggest things that seems to drive their success, is this dynamic that Stewie and Unimatic have, the numbers they're able to put up, the way they work off of each other, the way Stewie is able to kind of lead by example, and how he as a leader is able to set himself up and set Unimatic up, and what they're able to accomplish together. So do you really want to rattle that? Certainly I can see the arguments against not wanting to change that up because of how successful it is, and because it's such a big piece of Cloud9's success when they are successful. But if you're not getting consistent success, and if you can still get those players producing in other capacities, and at the same time get someone else on your team to produce even more with the role shift, like, imagine that, for example. Imagine if, you know, you have Unimatic and Stewie at 100%, but then maybe Shroud's only at like 50%. Like, these are obviously made up numbers, right? But okay, what if you take one of Stewie and Unimatic and you lower them from 100% to like 80%? And what they're going to be able to produce because you change them to a different slot, but you get to raise Shroud up from 50% to like 75 or 80% or something like that. And now all of a sudden the overall, like, numerical value of the strength of the team is going to overall increase because you, like, one key player has made a sacrifice, but in that sacrifice he's still able to do really well, and you've been able to elevate another player on the team. Like, you can certainly see, like, why maybe you might want to consider, you know, taking a chance on it or something like that. It's also certainly the case that maybe a role change wouldn't make a bit of difference. Like, we've already talked about the fact that maybe his individual form just isn't there anymore. Maybe you know, the aim's just not there like it used to be. Maybe it's just not as crisp as it used to be. So maybe changing his role isn't going to miraculously make his individual form better, and so therefore it's still going to overall be a failure. And also, again, like, I don't know how true it is, you know, how dedicated he is or how much time he's putting in. Those are all things that are going on behind closed doors that I'm never going to be able to have any knowledge of. But yes, certainly it's true that if there's dedication issues, or if there's time commitment issues, or if there's just effort issues, or like I said, individual form issues, if those are all problems, then maybe a shift of role isn't going to make that much of an impact, because still all those issues are going to persist. They'll just now be taking place in a different role on the team at maybe the expense of shaking up, you know, your core strength of Automatic and Stewie2k. So again, there's definitely some pitfalls to experimenting. But I would say it all does come down to timing. Let me give you an example. What if Cloud9 is unable to qualify for the PGL Krakow Major in Poland? At that point, why not experiment, especially if you're still committed to this 5 even after that? Now, certainly it may be true that if they don't qualify for the major, that they would consider a roster change or something like that, and then maybe all of what I said has become, you know, irrelevant and obsolete or what have you. But if they really are committed to this 5, then I feel like this is something to experiment with, especially if you can find the right timing, because obviously right now they're on a big stretch in Europe where they're, you know, playing the major qualifier, and if they qualify for the major, they'll have the major, plus they have ESL1 Cologne, plus they're boot camping to try to prep for all those events. And so maybe the timing isn't right to do it now if they do succeed in qualifying for the major. But if you don't qualify for the major, then why not experiment for like ESL1 Cologne or something like that? Why not before the off season just toy with it and see if it's really something you want to do before you go into the off season and you start making decisions about what you want to do with the lineup? It's obviously just a suggestion, but again, I think the context is there for it making sense with his skill set, his past success in the role, and with the fact that guys like Automatic and Stewie probably can slot into a peripheral and still be successful. But again, there's certainly the pros and cons you have to weigh, because maybe you don't want to shake up what the team already has working for them. And I'll just leave it at that. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please follow and subscribe for more. Thanks so much. Catch you next time.